At exactly 6:03 p.m., Rachel Owens stood in the glow of her kitchen's pendant light, arranging candles on the chocolate ganache cake she'd baked herself. The cake said, "Happy birthday, Daniel," in cheerful blue frosting, with a smiley face drawn beside it. Her hands were steady, her face wasn't. Her smile was the kind that didn't reach the eyes. A smile rehearsed 100 times in the mirror, a smile for guests, for neighbors, for her soon-to-be ex-husband. She looked radiant tonight, on purpose. Hair curled, eyes lined, lips a crimson red that matched her dress. Daniel always said red made her look powerful, fitting. Tonight wasn't a celebration, it was an execution. Outside, fairy lights blinked softly across the backyard. Neighbors were arriving one by one. Music played low. Laughter filtered through the window. Rachel glanced at the USB drive tucked safely into the back of the smart TV. The footage was loaded, ready. She'd tested it 3 times already. No glitches, no chance of escape. Just then, her phone buzzed. "Daniel, leaving the office in 10. Can't believe you let me go to work on my birthday. Love you." She didn't reply. Instead, her mind drifted back. Exactly 7 days ago. The moment her world cracked. It was raining. Liam had soccer practice. Rachel was walking back from the car when she saw it. A small white envelope wedged under her windshield wiper. No name, no handwriting. Just her license plate written on the back. Inside, a folded sheet of paper with one line in block letters. "Check your backyard camera. Friday, 11:22 p.m." At first, she almost threw it out. Another neighborhood prank? A weird neighbor? She had no enemies, at least she thought she didn't. But curiosity is cruel, especially when it scratches at the base of your spine and whispers, "What if you missed something?" That night, after Liam fell asleep, she logged into the security app and scrubbed through the feed. Her hands trembled as she passed hour after hour of stillness. Then it hit 11:21. She saw movement. 2 figures emerged from the side of the house. Her husband and Melanie. The neighbor with the perfect backyard, the fake laugh, and the convenient excuses to stop by when Rachel wasn't home. Melanie leaned in close to Daniel. Too close. Her hand touched his chest. Then, without hesitation, he pulled her in. They kissed. Long. Familiar. Like it wasn't the first time. Like it wouldn't be the last. Rachel paused the footage. Sat back. Silent. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. Something colder bloomed inside her. Something metallic and controlled. That's when she began planning. The doorbell rang. Rachel flinched, yanked out of memory. She fixed her face, wiped her hands, and opened the door. "Happy birthday to the man of the hour," yelled Greg from across the street, holding a case of imported beer. Behind him, Melanie and her husband walked up the driveway. Rachel smiled at Melanie. "You look gorgeous," she said, hugging her tightly. Melanie hugged back. "So do you, Rach. I can't believe you pulled this all together." "I'm good with surprises," Rachel said softly. "It's kind of my thing." Inside, Lauren, Rachel's best friend and secret co-conspirator, was setting wine glasses on the table. She caught Rachel's eye, raised an eyebrow. The silent signal. "Are you sure?" Rachel nodded once. No turning back. She walked into the living room and tapped the top of the TV stand, where the tiny black hidden camera was mounted. It blinked red. Recording, capturing everything. By 6:40 p.m., the house was buzzing with 20 people. Laughter, glasses clinking, jokes about getting older. Rachel moved through the room like a perfect hostess. Everyone thought she was glowing. In a way, she was. Rage has a way of lighting the face. She glanced at the front door. Daniel still hadn't arrived. Then her phone buzzed again. "Daniel. Pulling up in 2. Can't believe you didn't even bake me a cake, kidding. Unless," Rachel replied this time. "Rachel, you'll be surprised." She pressed send. Outside, headlights swept across the driveway. Lauren whispered behind her, "This is it." Rachel took a deep breath. "Let's light the candles." She turned off the living room lights. The guests hushed in anticipation. Someone dimmed the music. Rachel held the lighter steady over the wax wicks. 1 flame, then 2, then 8. The door opened. "Surprise!" The room erupted. Daniel's face lit up, eyes wide, smile spreading. He had no idea he just stepped into his own funeral. 3 months before the party, Rachel wouldn't have suspected a thing. She believed in Daniel like gravity, something constant, something unquestioned. They had built a quiet life in Maple Grove, the kind of suburb with tree-lined sidewalks and HOA rules about mailbox colors. Nothing ever happened there. That was the problem. It started with the cologne. Daniel had worn the same scent for 8 years, cedarwood and musk, warm, familiar. Then suddenly, something new, sharper, cooler. Rachel noticed it on a Wednesday evening as he hugged her after work. "You smell different," she'd said casually. Daniel laughed. "Oh, yeah, sample from a client. Thought I'd try it." She didn't press. She should have. A week later, it was the gym. Daniel, never one to care for cardio, suddenly got a trainer. He began going 3 nights a week, always after Liam was in bed, always with his phone on, do not disturb. Rachel asked to come once. Daniel chuckled. "It's just boring weights and sweat. You'll hate it." And then, as if the universe enjoyed twisting the knife slowly, the phone. Rachel walked into the bedroom one night, and Daniel instinctively flipped his phone face down. A simple motion, but too fast, too rehearsed. The kind of movement that wasn't casual. It was survival. He noticed her watching. "Work stuff. You know how these clients are." Rachel nodded, but her stomach sank. That night, she couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling fan, spinning in lazy circles, and thought about the tiny cracks appearing between them. Cracks she'd painted over with routine, with forgiveness, with hope. Was this how it began for other women? Not with lipstick on collars or strangers calling at midnight, but with silence, with tiny gut checks that feel too paranoid to say out loud. She thought about all the times she'd blamed herself. The distance? He's just tired. The jokes at her expense in front of friends? He's just teasing. The way he never really asked about her anymore? Marriage ebbs and flows, right? Still, she couldn't prove anything. She wasn't about to accuse her husband based on cologne and cardio, so she did what she always did. She turned to routine, packed Liam's lunch boxes, ran her freelance design jobs, went to Melanie's wine nights. And that was the worst part. Melanie. Rachel had never looked at her with suspicion before. She was the friendly neighbor, the woman who brought over banana bread during the flu season and offered to water their plants when they vacationed in Orlando. Her husband, Brent, was rarely around. Traveling consultant, something like that. Melanie had always been available. She'd text Daniel about neighborhood watch concerns. She'd offer to drop off packages from their porch. Rachel assumed it was just small-town helpfulness. Until one day, 3 weeks before the surprise party, Rachel and Melanie were chatting in the driveway. Melanie had just finished her morning run. Her cheeks were flushed, her tank top damp with sweat. Rachel complimented her effort. "You're really consistent with those runs." Melanie laughed breathlessly. "Thanks. Dan says I have discipline." Dan, not Daniel, not your husband. Just Dan. Rachel froze for a half-second. Melanie didn't notice, or pretended not to. That night, Rachel wrote it down in a small leather notebook she kept in her nightstand drawer. The one no one knew about. She had started logging everything. Dates, phrases, Daniel's schedule, Melanie's appearances. Not because she was trying to catch him, because she was trying to stay sane. One entry stuck out, dated 2 weeks before the party. "Melanie dropped off cookies while I was at Target. Liam said she stayed to chat with Daddy. Daniel said she was gone in 5 minutes. Liam said she was here for 30. Rachel hadn't said anything to Daniel. She needed more. She needed proof. Truth that couldn't be twisted. And then came the envelope, that anonymous note under her windshield, that timestamp, that camera. Rachel would never know who left it, but whoever it was, they cracked the final seal. She saw what she needed to see. Daniel's hands on Melanie's waist, her laugh against his neck, their silhouettes pressed against the siding of the very house she once called safe. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the ease, the routine, like they'd done this a dozen times. Rachel watched the whole clip, twice, then saved it. The next day, she texted Lauren, "I need you. Something's happened." Lauren replied instantly, "Tell me when and where. I'm already there." When Rachel opened the door, Lauren didn't even say hello. She pulled her into a hug so tight, Rachel nearly crumbled. "I've got you," Lauren whispered. It was 8:12 a.m. on a Thursday. Liam had just left for school. Daniel was at work. Rachel's face looked like glass, fragile, clear, seconds from shattering. But her hands were steady now, not trembling, not lost. She led Lauren into the living room and pulled up the footage. "Before you watch it, don't say anything. Just watch." Lauren nodded. Rachel hit play. They sat in silence as the seconds crawled forward. Melanie's figure came into frame first. Her yoga pants, her soft laugh, her familiarity. Then Daniel, shirt untucked, grinning like a teenager, hands on her hips, lips on her neck. The video lasted just over a minute. It was enough. When it ended, Lauren leaned forward, elbows on knees. "That's not flirting. That's a full-blown affair." Rachel nodded. "How long do you think it's been going on?" Lauren exhaled. "Long enough for them to forget where they were. That's the part that gets me. They didn't even try to hide it. On your property, on your camera." Rachel's voice dropped. "I'm not even hurt anymore. That left days ago." "Then what are you?" "Cold, focused, ready." Lauren tilted her head. "Ready for what?" Rachel didn't answer at first. She just walked over to the kitchen counter and opened a drawer, pulled out a stack of Daniel's unopened birthday invites. "I'm going to throw him the biggest surprise of his life." Lauren's eyes narrowed. "Talk to me." For the next 3 hours, the living room transformed into a war room. Rachel pulled out printed screenshots of the footage, calendar logs from her little black notebook, timestamps from their security system. She had already mapped out 3 possible confrontation strategies: private exposure, family intervention, or public humiliation. Lauren listened, silent at first, watching the gears in her best friend's mind turn like clockwork. She was impressed, but also worried. "You sure you want to do this way?" she finally asked. "There's no going back once it's public." "I don't want back," Rachel said. "I want forward." Lauren smiled grimly. "Then let's make it a night to remember." Rachel laid out the bones of her plan: a birthday party that Daniel wouldn't suspect, one that would invite neighbors, co-workers, even his mother, one that Melanie would of course be at. "It has to look real," Rachel said. "Festive, loving, a surprise. I want him thinking it's just another night where he wins." Lauren raised an eyebrow. "And when exactly do we detonate?" Rachel turned to the smart TV mounted on the wall. "Right after the cake." That night, Lauren texted her tech-savvy cousin, Jake, who worked in audio-video setups for weddings and corporate events. She asked if he could configure a simple, smart setup, a remote that could start a clip-on screen with a single button press. By morning, Jake had dropped off a discrete remote unit and instructions. "Plug it into the HDMI port, preload the clip, hit the green button. Boom!" Rachel practiced with it like she was rehearsing for a performance. Over and over. She wanted no margin for error. 2 days later, Rachel hosted a wine night for the neighborhood ladies, her final test. Melanie came, all smiles and sundresses, bringing her famous peach cobbler. She sat on the same couch where the footage had been reviewed just days before. She asked about Daniel's birthday. Rachel smiled. "Oh, just something small. He thinks I forgot. Poor man." Melanie laughed a little too hard. "He's lucky to have you." Rachel met her gaze across the rim of her wine glass. "He doesn't know how lucky." Lauren watched the exchange from across the room. Later that night, she pulled Rachel aside. "You're scary when you go quiet," she said. "That wasn't a bluff. That was a warning." Rachel didn't blink. Let her wonder. By Monday, invites were out. The guest list was long enough to make it feel real, but intimate enough that every reaction would sting. Daniel didn't suspect a thing. He was preoccupied, distracted, floating on the ego boost of thinking Rachel had forgotten his birthday. His texts became more flirtatious, more playful, as if erasing the scent of guilt with the illusion of a clean conscience. Melanie, meanwhile, played her part. Friendly smiles, offering help, asking if she could bring a wine Daniel liked. Rachel said yes. Of course. He loves when you bring wine. The trap was tightening. That night, Rachel sat in bed beside Daniel, pretending to scroll her phone. Daniel turned to her, brushing her hair back. "You've been amazing lately," he said. "I've been stressed, but I see you. I appreciate you." Rachel didn't look up. She just said, "I know." Then she got up, kissed his cheek, and whispered, "You'll never forget this birthday." Daniel smiled, eyes closed. He thought she meant it as love. She meant it as a promise. On the morning of Daniel Owens' 37th birthday, the sky over Maple Grove was a pale, muted blue, the kind of color that made everything feel soft, almost cinematic. Rachel stood by the window in a satin robe, stirring her coffee like it was the last warm thing she touched that day. She wasn't nervous. She was ready. Downstairs, the living room had been transformed overnight. Streamers curled above the fireplace. The custom "Happy Birthday, Daniel" banner fluttered slightly in the soft breeze from the air vents. Balloons framed the TV, the very TV that, in just a few hours, would deliver the final blow. Rachel had preloaded everything. The footage was in place, the remote tucked into her purse, the HDMI device hidden behind the console. One press, one flick of her wrist, and the whole illusion of her husband's perfect suburban life would implode in front of witnesses. Her only regret? That it took her this long to stop playing the polite, understanding wife. She went upstairs and got ready. Red dress, classic, fitted, sharp neckline. The same one she wore on their 10th anniversary. Daniel once said it made her look like a movie star. Good. Tonight he'd watch her deliver the final scene. By 5:30 p.m., guests had begun to trickle in. Lauren arrived first, wearing black, like it was a funeral. She brought the wine, the playlist, and her signature raised eyebrow. "You still breathing?" she asked quietly. Rachel nodded. "Deep and slow." Lauren glanced around. "He's not here yet?" Rachel checked her phone. "Still wrapping things up at work? I'm sure Melanie knows exactly when he'll leave." Lauren's mouth tightened. "She's coming, right?" "Oh, she RSVP'd first. Wouldn't miss it for the world," she said. Rachel's voice was steady. Not a hint of sarcasm, just surgical precision. By 6:10 p.m., the house was alive. Neighbors from 3 blocks away wandered in with bottles of wine and hugs. Daniel's mother, Patricia, arrived in a beige trench coat and that high-pitched voice Rachel had learned to tolerate over the years. "Oh, sweetheart, this is just lovely. Daniel's so lucky to have you. Still keeping him in line, I hope." Rachel smiled warmly. "One way or another." Then Melanie arrived. She wore a slim floral dress that hugged just a little too much. She carried a bottle of Pinot Noir. She greeted Rachel with a double-cheek kiss like they were sisters. "You look stunning," Melanie said. "So do you," Rachel replied. Their eyes locked. For a second too long. Then Rachel added softly, "Thanks for everything you've done for my husband lately." Melanie blinked. "What do you mean?" Rachel smiled. "You've been generous." At 6:40 p.m., Rachel gave Lauren the signal. Music lowered. Lights dimmed slightly. The last few guests huddled in the living room, whispering, laughing, drinking. Rachel lit the candles on the cake, the glow flickering against her cheekbones. She leaned down, adjusting them slightly. Not because they needed fixing, but because her hands needed something to do. Outside, headlights swept the driveway. Lauren whispered, "Showtime." Daniel walked in a moment later, fake shocked and over-smiling. Everyone erupted. "Surprise!" He laughed, too loud, too rehearsed, and held his hands over his heart. "Oh my God, I can't believe you did this." He made a show of looking around the room, greeting everyone, kissing his mother's cheek, then walking up to Rachel and pulling her into a tight embrace. "You got me," he whispered. Rachel looked him dead in the eyes. "You have no idea." Everyone gathered around the living room as Rachel brought the cake in. The lights dimmed again. Daniel stood front and center, eyes gleaming, one arm around Rachel's waist. "Make a wish," someone shouted. He closed his eyes. Rachel stepped to the side. "I have one more surprise," she said clearly, projecting over the room. Laughter and chatter paused. Rachel smiled. "Some of you might not know, but Daniel and I installed security cameras a few months ago. You know, safety, porch pirates, all that." Daniel tilted his head slightly, confused. Rachel continued. "But sometimes cameras catch more than packages." From her purse, she pressed the remote. Behind them, the TV flared to life. The screen lit up with a familiar view. Rachel's backyard, dimly lit. A timestamp in the corner. Friday, 11:22 p.m. Gasps echoed across the room. Daniel turned, stared, and there it was. Daniel Owens, Melanie Carter. Kissing, laughing, pressed together against the siding of the house. The clip played for a full 47 seconds. Silence. Then glass shattered. Someone dropped a wine flute. Daniel turned back around slowly. Everyone was staring. Rachel's voice cut the air like a knife. "Happy birthday, Daniel." The silence that followed Rachel's words wasn't the kind that feels empty. It was the kind that pulses. Tense. Electric. As if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Daniel's eyes were frozen on the screen. So were Melanie's. Her wine glass trembled in her hand. The clip looped. Again. Daniel's hands on Melanie's waist. Her head tilting back in a laugh. Their kiss, shadowed but unmistakable. The timestamp in the corner ticking like a courtroom exhibit. Daniel finally broke the silence. "Rach, what is this?" His voice cracked halfway through. Rachel stood just to the side of the TV, arms crossed, head slightly tilted. Her face wasn't angry. It was something worse. Composed. "This," she said, "is your gift." Melanie stepped forward. "Rachel, don't." Rachel's voice sliced through the room. "Don't insult me with a lie you haven't even rehearsed." Gasps broke out from the crowd. Patricia, Daniel's mother, looked between the screen and her son, mouth open in horror. A few people had instinctively taken a step back from Daniel, as if infidelity was contagious. Melanie's husband, Brent, had arrived late and stood frozen near the doorway. His face had turned the color of wet cement. "You were on our property," Rachel said, eyes locked on Daniel. "Next to the hydrangeas I planted, under the camera you helped me install. You smiled while you did it." Daniel's mouth opened, then closed. "Say something," she said. "Or better yet, explain it to your mother. She's right behind you." Patricia made a small choking sound. "Daniel? With Melanie? Rachel, this can't be real. There has to be." "There is no misunderstanding," Rachel said, turning to her. "It's all real, and it's not the first time." Daniel tried to take a step toward her. "Rachel, please." She stepped back. "Don't." His tone shifted, trying charm, that practiced warmth. Okay. Look, yes, something happened. Once. It was a mistake. We'd had too much wine." Rachel's laugh stopped him mid-sentence. "Once," she said, raising an eyebrow. "You really want to lie to my face now? You want to lie in front of all these people?" She pulled a small remote from her purse, clicked a button. The video changed. Another clip. Different night. Different angle. Same people. More intimate. More damning. Someone audibly gasped. Melanie nearly dropped her wine. Rachel spoke without looking at them. "You were stupid enough to do it in the open. I was smart enough to record it." Daniel's charm cracked. Anger surged through his face like heat through glass. "You had cameras running? You spied on me?" "No," Rachel said coldly. "I protected myself." Melanie turned to Brent, who was now staring at her with an expression that wasn't confusion. It was realization. Dull and devastating. "Brent," she whispered. He held up a hand. "Don't." Then he walked out. Melanie went after him, stammering apologies that sounded like leaves caught in a windstorm. The door slammed. Daniel stood alone in the center of the room, surrounded by old co-workers, neighbors, and a mother who now looked like she didn't recognize her own son. "You think this makes you look strong?" he snapped. "Doing this in public?" No, Rachel said, stepping forward now. This makes me look done. I filed for divorce last week. The house is in my name. The prenup is airtight. And you, Daniel, are officially exposed. Lauren raised her glass in the corner. To exposure. A few people laughed. Most didn't know what to do. The social script had run out. This wasn't a party anymore. Daniel looked around, desperate. You're really ending our marriage like this? Rachel tilted her head. You ended it the moment you crossed the fence line into her backyard. Daniel left shortly after. He didn't say goodbye, didn't blow out the candles, didn't even take his gift bag, which ironically held a framed print of their wedding vows. Rachel had found it while cleaning the attic and decided it was the perfect metaphor for the night. When the last guest left and the house was quiet again, Rachel stood in front of the TV, replaying the footage one final time. Then she unplugged the HDMI stick, dropped it in the fireplace, and lit a match. Daniel didn't come home that night. After the party imploded, after Melanie chased her husband into the streets sobbing, and Daniel's own mother sat on Rachel's couch, too stunned to speak, he left. No message. No apology. Rachel didn't care. She locked the door behind the last guest, turned off the lights one by one, and poured herself a glass of wine. Alone. Quiet. The silence no longer hurt. It felt earned. She sat on the couch, still wearing the red dress, and stared at the remains of the party. The half-eaten cake, the wilted balloons, the gift bags left unopened. It looked like a war zone masked as a celebration, and in a way it was. The next morning, Daniel called. She let it ring. Then he texted, "We need to talk. Please, you humiliated me. That wasn't fair." Rachel read the words 3 times before setting her phone down, untouched. It took him 2 days to show up. He knocked, not with guilt, but with entitlement. She opened the door just wide enough for him to see her. Her hair was pulled back, no makeup, eyes sharp. She looked 10 years wiser than the woman who'd greeted guests days earlier. "I just want to explain," he said. "You're not coming inside. Rachel, please, we have a child. Our child is at my sister's, where he's protected from seeing the man who destroyed our home." Daniel's face twisted. "I made a mistake, but you didn't have to make it public. Do you know what people are saying?" "Yes," she said. "They're saying you got caught, finally." Daniel tried again. "Melanie, isn't your problem anymore," Rachel cut in. "She's got her own disaster now. Brent moved out yesterday. Took the kids. Filed, I heard." Daniel blinked. "Already?" Rachel leaned against the doorframe. "See, Daniel, it's funny how consequences move faster when you don't hide behind charm." He scoffed. "So what? You're the victim now? You've never been perfect either." Rachel smiled, tired, knowing. "No, but I was faithful. I was loyal. I held this house together while you were out staining someone else's bedsheets." That hit. He stepped back. She didn't flinch. "I've spoken to my lawyer," Rachel continued. "The prenup holds. You walked away from fidelity. That costs you. The house stays with me. So does the car. And Liam, you'll see him when he's ready, not when you want to play dad again." Daniel looked like he wanted to argue, but the wind was gone. From him. There was no high ground left to crawl to. He turned, hands clenched at his sides. "You're cold, Rachel." "No," she said. "I'm done." Meanwhile, the neighborhood turned. Melanie became invisible overnight. Her minivan disappeared from the driveway. People stopped waving. The group chat went silent when she posted. Her children, once frequent playmates of Liam's, were now withdrawn, escorted to and from school by a grandmother who kept her head down. Brent filed for full custody. Rachel didn't gloat. She didn't need to. Public truths don't need follow-up statements. They echo on their own. Lauren checked in daily. "You sleeping?" "Better." "Appetite?" "Coming back." "Regret?" Rachel shook her head. Not even once. In the weeks that followed, Rachel started piecing her life back together. Not from scratch, but from steel. She moved Daniel's things into boxes and left them on the porch. They sat there for 2 days before disappearing. She never checked where they went. She changed the locks, repainted the hallway, cut her hair, just a few inches, but enough to mark the transition. She took Liam to the beach on a Saturday, just the two of them. They built sandcastles. She told him stories that had nothing to do with betrayal or lawyers, just dragons and stars and strong mothers who never ran from storms. He smiled more that week. He laughed again. And that, more than revenge, more than vindication, was what mattered most. One evening, she found a card in the mailbox. No stamp, no name, just one word on the front. Sorry. Inside, a single line, scrawled in fast, shaky handwriting. I never meant for it to go that far. Rachel folded the card once, then again. She tossed it in the trash with the same motion someone flicks away lint. No drama, no burning, just disposal. She didn't need apologies. She had her life back. By the time autumn rolled in, the hydrangeas that once framed Rachel's garden, the same ones Daniel and Melanie stood beside in that damning footage, had wilted into brown, brittle reminders of a past Rachel had burned to ash. She didn't water them anymore. Instead, she replanted the entire garden. Out went the hydrangeas. In came fire lilies and sage. Resilient, bright. Plants that bloomed with heat and healed with time. She dug her hands into the earth like a woman trying to reclaim her breath from beneath years of settling dust. And in a way, she was. Liam noticed the changes, too. His mother cooked again. Not rushed frozen meals, but real food, warm food, meals she let him stir and taste. They started reading before bed again. He began telling stories of his own, about knights and monsters and brave queens who won battles with words, not swords. One night, as Rachel tucked him in, he asked, "Are you happy again, Mommy?" Rachel didn't lie, not to him. "I'm getting there, sweetheart." And she meant it. Professionally, Rachel came alive. She revived her freelance design business with a force she didn't know she had. Clients returned, referrals tripled. She redid her website, updated her headshot. The old one still had Daniel's books in the background. She replaced it with one of her standing in her new garden, hands on hips, eyes direct. Her inbox filled. So did her calendar. And strangely, so did her confidence. Every small win, a satisfied client, a kind review, a payment cleared, felt like a brick laid on the new foundation of her life. Not the one she built with Daniel, the one she built after. Lauren remained her anchor. They had wine nights often, but now they were lighter. Less about pain, more about the future. They laughed. They made sarcastic bets about which neighborhood couple would implode next. Rachel won the bet when the Johnsons filed over a gambling addiction. "Never trust a man with 3 fantasy football leagues," she quipped. Lauren grinned. "God, I love this version of you." Rachel sipped her wine and smiled. "So do I." Daniel tried. Of course he did. A few weeks after the confrontation, he sent long, guilt-laced emails filled with reflections and new therapy insights. He said he missed Liam. He missed their home. He missed the version of Rachel who still looked at him like he was the center of the room. Rachel didn't reply. She forwarded every message to her attorney. The custody arrangement was slow, deliberate, and on her terms. Liam would never be weaponized, but he would also never be lied to again. When Daniel came for his first supervised visit, Liam hugged him stiffly, then asked if they could go home. Rachel didn't smile, but she felt the wind deep in her bones. Melanie vanished, for real this time. Her house was sold by winter. The for sale sign popped up one morning and was gone a month later. No goodbye, no closure, no second act apologies. Rachel sometimes saw the lights on inside, heard the sounds of renovations. A new couple was moving in. Young, kind, freshly married. They knocked on her door once to introduce themselves. Rachel welcomed them with banana bread and a smile. The irony didn't escape her, but she didn't mention Melanie. Some ghost didn't deserve the breath. One afternoon, while cleaning out the hall closet, Rachel found something she hadn't seen since the party. Daniel's gift bag, still unopened, still sitting there behind Liam's old rain boots. She pulled it out. Inside, a leather-bound journal, a silver necklace he'd once said reminded him of their honeymoon, and a note card in his handwriting. "To the woman who always knows how to surprise me." Rachel read the line, Line twice. Then she dropped the bag in the trash. No fire this time. No rage. Just a quiet, definitive ending. That night, she took Liam for ice cream. He picked mint chip. She picked caramel swirl. As they sat on the bench under the dim glow of a street lamp, he leaned into her side and whispered, "You're really strong, Mommy." She looked down at him. "I had to be," she said softly, "for both of us." He nodded, then went back to eating. The same date, exactly 1 year later. But this time there was no surprise party for a man who didn't deserve her loyalty. No neighbors pretending not to know. No red dress worn for someone else's gaze. This time, the house was full of something entirely different. Peace.